Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today I'll talk about my upcoming Stormcall build, but also lightning casters in general. It's actually funny how this league made casters viable with a lot of things that GGG never really fixed over the years, but it just accidentally happened through some items like Coiling Whispers, for example. A lot of casters have been complaining about self-casting feeling bad. Everybody's cast on crit, everybody's mines, just because there's not a lot of sources of cast speed. Guess what? You throw 225% cast speed in the mix, easily sustained, and all of a sudden, here we are. Then you get lightning builds who have a clear advantage with Dorianis on their Merc for a easy, quote-unquote, minus 200% resistances on enemies, and you can even do that on non-lightning skills with the Admiral chest. But with a lot of these changes, you have some winners that you might not expect. For example, Stormcall, which double dips with reduced duration. Stormcall is one of those skills that has a very low cast time. We're going to talk all about it, and it hasn't really ever been good on cast on crit or mines, etc., because cheesing its cast speed was never really all that viable. A lot of its power is in self-casting, and I think it's now time to shine. So we'll be talking about Stormcall, but I also want to talk about this shell in general, because there isn't all that much that would make you have to be Stormcall on this build, but I will explain why I think it is the best choice or among the best choices. I'm going to edit this after, but I should put this right here. What Lightning Casters got is a shell other than Archmage. That's probably the biggest deal after all of these. So Archmage with like Hierophant, mana is all good, but the problem with casters was mostly mana, which is now fixed by Lightning Golem giving you a ton of flat mana regen, as well as that Elementalist is just very strong. And if you think about what ascendancy you're clicking on, there's basically Inquisitor, which got nerfed. They removed Divine Blessing, EB Mom, right? All got destroyed. You now have a different caster type, and you have the mana fixed to go with that. And that is a really big deal, not just for lightning casters, but I'll put it right in here because this is kind of where it all starts. To drive home that point, look at my mana regen right here. I currently have 297. If I tick off my lightning golem, I go down to 41. It is that broken. What lightning casters got this league is pretty straightforward. Doriani's chest, Doriani's prototype, which usually you have to equip, and it is a big sacrifice to get enemies to minus 200 resistances. You don't have to do that anymore. You can put that responsibility on your Merc, and it is quite ridiculous. I'll talk about the Merc setup later, but so far so good. So 225% cast speed with Coiling Whispers. Now, Coiling Whispers, obviously at this point, most people know it from the Forbidden Rite build, and a lot of, it's just across the board a very nice tech. It's 225% attack and cast speed, but you have to play around with curses, which also feeds perfectly, once again, into Stormcall, which wants to scale reduced duration anyways. We also get 25 to 30% more cast speed from Righteous Fire of the Arcane. And this one is a quite interesting one that hasn't been used as much as I thought it would. And that's for a simple reason. You can't use it on CI. It is, however, on a normal caster that isn't Archmage, a lot easier to sustain than normal RF. Normal RF also just gives more damage and more than Arcane Devotion, but Arcane Devotion makes your build feel infinitely better. That's the thing, right? If I had the choice between 25% more cast speed and 39% more damage, at every single point, I would take the more cast speed. But it's also absurdly easy to sustain, right? So you take 90% of your max mana per second as fire damage. I have 937 mana times 0.9, and then I also have 90 max res. So divided by 10, we're at 84 damage taken. And there's also Spell Echo, which got buffed by getting its more multiplier, its less multiplier removed, right? This goes for Awakened Spell Echo and for normal Spell Echo, and that results into the more damage here. But how do I transition this into Stormcall? So why is Stormcall actually the play? First up, if you've never seen this skill, I will just show you the baseline. This is the skill, right? So I'll just do one cast here with a Spell Echo. This is what you get. This is Stormcall plus Awakened Spell Cascade. This is how you play the skill. The skill isn't really viable on its own. On its own, it's just this. Awakened Spell Cascade is the reason this skill is playable and even very strong. So what Awakened Spell Cascade does is it gives you overlaps, right? So in the middle, you have your main skill, and then on the sides, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 extra. Kind of looks like this, right? And you might notice that in the middle, there's actually a overlapping point where if you name block enemies, you will hit 5 times with Awakened Spell Cascade. In order to do that, though, you need quite a bit of AoE. Probably best seen on this MTX right here. So you can see in the middle, there is a point where they all overlap. However, this gets even bigger. I don't have my power charges up right now, right? So I also get AoE per power charge. But even at this point, we're already overlapping. Why has this not been played in the past? Because sounds pretty strong, right? And as you will see, the numbers are also pretty strong. Mostly because of things that happened this league. So this package that I just talked about, Stormcall is a 0.5 second skill. And in the past, spellcasters have been cast on crit, mines, like I said, everything that circumvents its cast time because it's just so annoying to play. And there isn't that much cast speed on the tree. And the cast speed that is on the tree is extremely, extremely inefficient. And attack speed is just a lot easier to get, as you can see perfectly with coordination or also Harrier, right? They always give you relatively more attack speed than cast speed. And if you have a low cast time skill, it's just a self-cast skill, because with mines you can override the 0.75, and this 300 damage is obviously a lot higher than the 200 damage as an example. But if you're self-casting, a 0.5 second cast time 200 damage is the same as a 0.75 300 damage. So then you might say, well, there was Archmage though all this time. It's even lightning based, right? It fit perfectly into it. Well, not really, simply because Stormcall scales so well with levels, not just like damage-wise, obviously like every other skill, but AoE-wise, you need a ton of AoE to overlap these. And as you can see right here, it has +1 to meter of base radius, and that starts at level 30, right? And if I go down, look at what happens to my AoE if I go down to level 21, which would be this right here. Yeah, I go down a significant amount of AoE. Now, you can still play at this league technically with Archmage. It is possible. It will be less AoE, but it can still overlap with a little bit more investment. But that's all I'm saying, right? That wasn't really the case before. It just wasn't very great on Archmage. The reason I'm saying this with levels is because if you scale Archmage, you scale flat damage, which is the same as levels. So that's why you never see people on Archmage really scale levels. You do one or the other. Also, Flame Golem and all the Elementalist Shell is a pretty big deal, as you can see right here. You go from 5.4 down to 4.8. And I have Ancestral Bonds on 1 Megalomaniac and my 2 large clusters. The third one, I don't even have it. But as you can see, I'm not using like a quadruple Ancestral Bond setup even. In terms of why I scale so much AoE, other than just clear speed, there's a lot of other things here. The first one is Flesh and Stone, which is actually not PoB bait here. I always talk about this, how Flesh and Stone only gives you the damage reduction if the enemies are in the area. So if your area is the base AoE, which is 2.8 meter, it's basically worthless. Unless you're melee, obviously. But we're talking spellcasters here. Basically worthless, right? Like absolutely worthless. But with AoE scaling and with getting this aura big, now all of a sudden you can even rely on it, right? So that's pretty big, as well as that to even drive the clear speed home more. Orief's End, obviously Progenesis would be the more grown-up version where you get like more max hit, right? Pretty cool. But Orief's End has been getting a lot of bad attention over the last few leagues because it's just tiny AoE, but not on this build. So the base AoE is 1.8. Yeah, you get it to 3.9. That's a pretty big exploding. And Stormcall also feeds perfectly into Coiling Whispers. And this is the point where I have to show you a few things with reduced duration. So if you haven't been caught up to how Coiling Whispers works, when 90% of your hex's duration expires an enemy, eat 1 soul per enemy power. So that means you want to get down the curse duration or the hex duration as low as possible, so that last 10% is as short as possible. And on Forbidden Rite, we were talking about like 0.4 seconds or something, and sometimes is awkward, right? You have to be nearby because of the blade fall. Nothing like this here. It's 0.066 seconds. I have 99% reduced duration exactly, and that is without Delve Ring. And I will just quickly show you how this looks. I have it on my Lightning Warp, and that is all you need. The SEIZURE stacks will be up top. I'll just warp through some enemies, and you can see it immediately. 16, 24, 25, 45. And there it is, right? And now we got our full speed. One other thing with reduced duration that you might have noticed is why the hell is your Lightning Warp so fast? Well, it turns out Lightning Warp is also broken with 100% reduced duration, so it just kind of feeds into everything, right? So if you're wondering why I'm not playing Frostblink of Wintry Blast, you can see it on the screen right now. Now, before we even ask how I get the reduced duration, why is it a big deal? So Stormcall, after all I said, is like, oh wow, this can overlap 5 times. It has 0.5 cast speed. Why the hell is nobody ever playing it? Because it's usually annoying to play, right? It has a delay. So it actually comes with 1.5 second delay initially, as you can see on the skill gem. So the idea is you're kind of marking and then you're waiting for them to come down, but that's not how I play this game, obviously. And we bring it down to 0.297 seconds as well. So it's basically instant. It's like a projectile that has a small traveling time. And this league, once again, another buff that I actually forgot to talk about is Hasty Demise. 10% reduced skill effect duration is such a big deal. If you didn't get it here, you would actually have to give up another ring slot, which at that point, it's not even possible anymore. This gives 10% reduced duration. Then we get another 25% reduced duration right here. And then we also have 15% from our Dusk Ring. Make sure this is in the left ring slot, then you get reduced skill effect duration. And the rest comes from a level 2 Hex Touch support. And this is very important that it's a level 2. So you can see right here, Temporal Chains, Hex Touch, Arcane Surge, doesn't matter, but on the Lightning Warp, right? So whatever the Lightning Warp touches gets Temporal Chains, which is the lowest duration curse, and then you immediately get the Soul Stacks once you touch anything. And since we have so much AoE, the Lightning Warp is also huge, so you don't have to directly get into a pack. You will just glaze it and still, or like graze it, sorry, and you will still touch it. And yeah, the AoE, once again, has a lot of things in this build. Also, like Flesh and Stone, for example, has a huge AoE right here, but I'm getting sidetracked, whatever. Okay, so Hex Touch, Temporal Chains. The Hex Touch has to be level 2, because if it's level 1, like in the other setups, you're actually overshooting, right? You have 100% reduced, and then you're not applying a curse at all. So this needs to be level 2 exactly. Otherwise, this is a Golem shell. I just, yeah, stack a bunch of Golems, Stone Golem, Flame Golem, Lightning Golem, all the good stuff. There's 2 setups that you can do, either Archdemon Crown with a rare body armor, or a good +4 body armor with Sandstorm Visage. Sandstorm Visage with a Prophecy Wand, you can get up to 13.4 base crit on your spell, but I'll quickly show you a map before, and then we can talk about those 2 versions. So I'm currently doing a map farming strat with 4 risks, so we're gonna have 8 additional random modifiers. I'm just going to hope I get no regen. No regen is the only thing that bricks me, then I just have to chunk in a mana flask. But okay, so we go domination here, boom. Another big thing for this build, obviously, has been the Lightning Golem, which gives a ton of flat mana regen. That was always one of the things where Archmage excelled at, right? But yeah. So we start getting the Deli Mirror. Just wait for a second. And then we just pop off. And yeah, as you can see, the AoE is simply ridiculous on this skill. You can just move around and everything dies. I have a ton of defensive layers at this point, but it's obviously fueled by Mage Blood. Without Mage Blood, it is a lot harder to get non-CI defenses, as you might be aware. That is, I mean, one of the reasons why a lot of people are CI. But yeah, as you can see right here, everything is kind of getting absolutely obliterated. And by the way, because people are saying like, oh, 4-5 risk, the Merc starts dying, and you're so reliant on Doriani's. I'll show you my Merc setup, but honestly, it has never, and I mean not literally never, like actually never died. And I've been running around about 500 of these maps already. Granted, I don't know about tier 17s with 5 risks, because I've heard, obviously because the layouts are so shit and you can't go anywhere, it might die, so you might have to do more. But honestly, I think I've been doing overkill on my Merc in terms of what I've put into their defensiveness. This map here, okay, so boss, extra yes, we're name locking it, it gets 5 times overlapped, right? This is kind of how it looks. The MTX fuckery is pretty hard. With Astral, which I think looks the best, this is how it looks like. I'll show you the rest real quick. Okay, so let's start at normal Stormcall. This one's pretty damn easy. Yeah, I have to do this one on stream. It looks the worst, but it is what it is. It's the best performance by a mile, but you can definitely pay to lose if you want to. Seizure warning right here. These are very bright. I don't know who the hell made these, who approved these, but here we go. So this is this one. I don't know who the hell would play this. Never buy this. This is literally don't buy it. Arcane Storm, you can't buy. Astral is okay. It's decent on the eyes. It's like not great, but it's doable, right? And the last 2, same thing. Never buy these. Nobody approved these. Nobody ever thought to use these with a lot of cast speed ever. This one's unplayable. And this one will literally fry your PC. So my PC is howling right now, just so you know. Do never use this one. And also, never use the Tribal Storm, because you also can't see shit. It's like, who made these? I have no idea. Now, the shells that I'll be showcasing here are going to be high budget. So this is going to be the build where I pump all my currency into. I like big AoE. I like good clear speed. This has everything, literally everything. I also don't really die. I'm already level 99, right? So here it is. I've been running 4 risks. But yeah, it comes with a hefty price tag, and you'll quickly see why. So this is like aspirational. And while you might be making this work on lower budget, I'm not going to tell you just remove Mage Blood for a res belt or whatever. No, this is going to be the shell that I have right now. And that's the one I'm going to show you, as well as the CI one that is maybe a little bit more economical and a little bit more realistic, and also maybe just tankier. Actually, let's start with life-based. So life-based with a +3 or +4 chest and Sandstorm Visage. So all you have to know about this skill is you want to get it to level 30. So there's a few ways to do that. Archdemon Crown has +2 level of socketed skill gems. And with essences, you can get the 30% more elemental damage to whatever you socket into your helmet, right? So you get 30% more LE damage, you can get hypothermia, you can get base crit, you can get less duration, which is very, very important because you're kind of confined to that 4-link. And then you can also get up to +2 level of socketed AoE gems if you hit the Veiled Exalted Orb. In this case, here I have it crafted. However, what actually turned out better on my version is going for a +4 in the chest and then going for Sandstorm Visage with a crit Prophecy Wand. With the Implicit Enchant and the Prophecy Wand, which starts at 10 base crit and 27% increased crit craft, we're already at 13.4 crit chance, base crit chance. So Sandstorm Visage overwrites your normal crit chance, which here would be 6, with whatever the wand is, which is 13.4, more than doubling your crit chance, which opens up a lot of opportunity. It can even go over 14 if you hit the 37% increased crit. And just to be clear, this version was better even before I got the +1 power charge. This was a lucky purchase, but it's still better. So you need, for this setup to work, you need at least a +3 to get the Storm Call to level 30. I'm currently on level 31, but that is what you need. So either +1 with +2 to duration, +1 to AoE, and so on, right? And it does not also need to be Brass Dome. It could be anything. You just kind of have to make it work. Brass Dome is a very defensive option if you want to use high risk. You can also use stuff like the Shrine Chest. That's the one, Blunderbore, right? Belly of the Beast. I have no idea. Like, you can make most of them work. It's just very important that you get the +2 levels. What you also need is to somehow get down here to Window of Opportunity to reduce skill effect duration, which is at its easiest done with a impossible escape on a Mage Bane, which I must have somewhere here. Yeah, here it is. This one's obviously very expensive and has only been going up since I started playing the build on stream, but that is very strong. You could alternatively do like pathing here and probably cut this cluster jewel, grab some stuff along the way, maybe do like a clever Light of Meaning. On this version, I'm actually going for full spell suppress, right? So we're pathing down here with tattooing everything into spell suppress. You technically don't need the tattoo. As you can see right here, I actually have the leech on my glove. You could get up to 10% leech. The reason I didn't want to do it is because of conflicts, and at the time it was actually cheaper to just do the tattoos. Other than that, I'm also going for just a tiny bit of evasion, right? So we have evasion bases here, evasion bases there. My shield is evasion based. I get to around about 50 to 55% chance to evade. On top of that, I also have a chunk of attack block. So I'm basically spreading out my defensive layers so that against risks, one mod cannot really brick me. The only mod that bricks me is No Regen, which is a tier 16 mod, but I have the Mana Flask here. I also get a ton of defenses from both Shaper of Winter and Shaper of Flames, and also Bastion of Elements. Bastion of Elements gives you a flat barrier, basically, which makes it better and better the more damage reduction and lower HP you have, and worse the more, for example, if you go ES for like 10, 13k, Bastion of Elements is very minuscule. So on the life version, this one is even better. Now, how would a CI version look like? So the big change of CI is, like I said, the Archdemon Crown that you're going to use. You're going to put your 6-link in the Archdemon Crown, so you don't need +2 levels on chest. And the reason that's important on CI is because on CI, you want a high energy shield chest, and that will never have +2 levels. There's no unique, so if you can't use uniques, which you can only really do on a life build, then you have to get your level somewhere, and that's going to be the Archdemon Crown. In this case, you're probably not going to go for spell suppress. You can do that and try to fit that in as well, but probably your best bet will be to go full block. Now, this one is obviously kind of troll, right? I didn't really fill that out, but you would go for a red nightmare here probably for block. You would go for a blue nightmare here for spell block, and you would do all that stuff. This is just like an old version that doesn't really function anymore, but you kind of get the gist. And after that, all that happens is your boots are obviously going to be ES, your gloves are going to be ES, so you're also losing a little bit of that evasion. That build would overall be a lot tankier. It's not what I'm going for, and the reason is only and only that I wanted to play with Righteous Fire of Arcane Devotion. I wanted that more cost speed, and oh god, does it feel good. So that's literally the only reason. For Merc, a few things. You want to start at Fallen Reverend with Wrath and Zealotry Aura. Those are insane, obviously. So it frees up you not having to run them, so you can run D-Term and Flesh and Stone and stuff like that defensively. It all starts at Doriani's. If you can afford it, a 50% reduced extra damage from crits is huge as well for survivability. And then you want to get some armor, and you also want to cap all resistances other than lightning. It starts at getting to minus 200 lightning res, which you can do with these rings. You can basically craft them yourself. All you need is 2 mods, and then it is, from what I heard, around about an 80-90% chance to actually mirror them like this. I went for 1 with cold and chaos res and 1 with fire and chaos res to basically just insta-cap on the rest. Then you also want to get some HP, whatever you can. Now, the GG rings would also have Recoup. I've heard Recoup is completely OP. I'm using Chaos Binding with either Zealotry or Wrath effect for the Fizz damage taken as. My gloves are there for Enfeeble, which I get the +1 curse on the Whispers of Doom anoint. The biggest thing to keep your Merc alive, though, is Defiance of Destiny. Since I've put this Emmy on, literally it feels like it cannot die. It feels impossible. As well as that, you want Ancestral Bond from either your helmet or your boots so that he can't die to Reflect. He doesn't do any damage anymore, which is very, very good. So I'm sacrificing my boot slots here. On the helmet, a Maw of Conquest is very strong. You can also get Malediction implicit on something. But yeah, Maw of Conquest, unaffected by poison. Recoup, super strong. I went for Dawnbreakers here for the lightning conversion, and then also more reduced extra damage from crits. But this one is pretty open, I'd say. And then on your wand, you want either 40% Wrath or 40% Zealotry effect. And yeah, as you can see, I will say that the build can become pretty hard to control at times. This is, by the way, without Spell Echo. So yeah, don't even do that. Spell Echo also completely fucks you up when you lag anyways, so I didn't really want to do that. But as you can see, you can traverse a map in like 5 seconds if you wanted to, right? So that's the power of Righteous Fire of Arcane, but you're gonna get similar results even without it if you really want to. This is still on the shitty MTX, but just to like clarify just how crazy the AoE is on this build, this build just kind of has it all. It uses all the broken stuff that's kind of out there this league, and I just wanted to highlight it right here. I will be putting out a build guide, obviously explaining everything in the coming days. Other than that, hope you enjoyed the video. Maybe you learned a thing or two. Lightning casters in general are definitely back. All we needed was 225% cast speed. Who would have thought? Skills like Stormcall that have low cast time are just a pleasure to play. But yeah, self-cast is kind of back on the menu. I'm really hoping that when they absolutely destroy this ring next league, that they maybe learn something from this experience at least, and maybe give casters an equivalent amount of cast speed to what attack-based builds get. With that said, hope you enjoyed the preview. I will put the current pop down below in the description, but there will be changes until the build guide. But with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.